Welcome. I'm Faye Waterman, and this is Talking All Things Business. And my guest today is Helen Ronnenbergh, and she is known as a block therapy instructor. And I thought, I'm curious and I wanted to know a little bit more about block therapy. So I thought we'd have a conversation on Facebook Live to create some curiosity and to find out a little bit more about what block therapy is. Now, Helen, just give a little bit of information about who you are, and then we'll ask the question.
Okay, so I'm Helen Ronnenbergh. I live in Melbourne, Australia, and like most people in lockdown, needed to find a solution to keep my body fit and trim, I guess, during this lockdown period. And that's when I found block therapy and totally fell in love with it.
Okay, so what is block therapy, Helen?
So it started about 20 years ago, or the journey to block therapy started 20 years ago by a Canadian girl called Deanna Hansen, who lives in a tiny little town called Winnipeg. I believe it's Alberta or Ontario. I'm not quite sure which province it is, but she trained as an athletic therapist, and that's very similar to a physiotherapist. It's just that she works with sports people. And being in that field, she really wanted to look good and trim so that she would be walking the talk. But unfortunately, that didn't come naturally to her. So she was always dieting. She was always training very hard to try and, keep her body looking trim. And it actually, for her, it had the opposite effect. So she was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger the more she exercised. And one of the things that she did with the athletes was she used to massage their injuries and things. So she was really familiar with what scar tissue felt like. And one night she was feeling really, really depressed and, almost ready to give up. And she just put her hands on her belly and she just felt all the scar tissue inside her belly. And that kind of was a bit of a surprise for her because she had never had any injuries there. She hadn't had any children or anything like that. And the more she massaged it, the more she found. And when she woke up the next morning, she actually started to feel better. And that started her on this journey where she discovered fascia, and that it wasn't scar tissue that she was feeling, it was actually adhesions in her fascia. So she went through this period where she really started to study fascia and then changed the way she was working with the athletes and created something called fluid isometrics, which is a way that they were massaging the athletes to help them not only with the injuries, but also to help them increase their mobility. And her practice grew so big that she then started to train other therapists. And it dawned on her the one day that it would be great if they could then create a way that people could actually do this at home. And that's when she started to develop the Block Buddy, which is the tool that we use in block therapy. And that was around about 2008. When
So let me stop you there. So was she using that block when she was working with the athletes, or did she actually develop it a period of time after she was working with the athletes?
So she was actually using her hands. Right. And, like massage therapists, they're pretty good with their hands. But when you're doing it on yourself and that's not your field, your hands get tired really quickly. Yes. So that was one of the reasons when she went and told people, to try and do it at home, their hands weren't strong enough because they weren't doing it enough. So it was only when she started looking at developing almost like a home way of doing fluid isometrics that she started to develop the Block Buddy.
Right. So how did you come up with the concept of an actual block, and how did she develop that block in the first instance to know that it was going to work the way she wanted it to work as a massage therapist works?
Yes, it was quite interesting. It was a 2-year journey for her to actually develop the tool. She tried different materials, from plastic, from balls, that foam rollers, all that kind of thing. And she eventually found that it had to be a natural product, or natural, made out of something natural, because, and also that it had to be the same density as our bones. So when it is the same density as our bones, it helps to release those adhesions quicker. And then with the size and the shape, she wanted to have, well, the size that you could do larger parts of your body, but then the shapes, it's curved on the edges. So she wanted to have those curved edges so that you could put it into the tiny cracks on your body, like you can put it on your face, in the small of your eyes here, so all over. So that was quite a journey for her as well, to create a tool that would do what the fluid isometric massage therapists were doing.
So that took her 2 years to find the right product. So she went through foam rollers and balls and all sorts of things which are out there now that people use to do similar things to what she's using, this block. Do you have one of those blocks with you? So that you
I do. I can just
show
you
what it actually is, because I'm people would be curious to understand. Now it's the block, it's an actual block. What's it made of?
So currently it's made out of cedar, so it's a special type of cedar that they have in Canada.
Yeah, it's a softwood, isn't it?
Yes, it's soft. It's soft and it's hard at the same time. The most important thing about the type of cedar that they used was that it is the same density as your bone, because when you're pushing on the tool and your bones are pushing back, it creates that magnetism to release the fascia.
Right. Okay. So when you say fascia, what do you mean? What's fascia for those people that don't know?
Yeah, so fascia is actually very, very fascinating, and because, no pun intended, because it's only now that the medical field are actually recognizing it being a system or another organ similar to our skin. So the best way that was described to me of fascia is if you take an orange, if you imagine an orange, it's got that nice orange skin around it, and if you peel that skin off, you have the orange and then you have the peel, and inside the peel is like that white stuff.
Yes.
Some of the white stuff actually sticks onto the orange, so you've got that kind of like a web around the orange. That's your fascia. But then when you open each segment and you take each segment of orange out, it's got that little sheath of skin around it. That's also fascia. And then when you break that one open and you look at all the little bits that the orange segment's made out of, you'll see that it's tiny little, they look like little droplets, and each one of those droplets has got a sheath around it, and that's also fascia. So the fascia system goes right throughout our body, into our organs, and even our muscles. So if you look at your muscle, it looks like just one, thick piece of flesh. But if you dissect it, it's actually made out of a whole bunch of, I suppose you could call it segments that have got a sheath around it, and that's also fascia.
Okay, so as she developed this and I'm going to say played with it to find out how it worked.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how she came up with a block of cedar wood that would do the work that she actually wanted it to do, and now uses it on her athletes and also uses it on other people. How different is it to the other tools that can be used, like your foam rollers or your rollers? And there's all sorts of rollers and things that you can get now which will do similar things to block therapy. So how is block therapy different or better than anything else? What is it that makes it do what it does, I suppose you could say?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
So the biggest thing is that the foam rollers, even though they do work because of the fabric that they're made out of. They don't go deep enough. So if you imagine your fascia is so deep, it goes into every single organ that you have. When you really get down to the adhesions that are actually holding you in place, that's so deep in your body that you need the hardness and the
firmness.
The firmness, as well as the fact that it's got the same density as our bone to actually remove that. And with foam rollers and little balls that you have, you just don't get that.
Okay. So it is curious, isn't it, that you can develop something that will work well and use it on athletes. What got you interested in it?
Well, I was actually looking at doing something with regard to my cellulite. I've struggled for years, and I'm not a overweight person. My weight's pretty stable, but no matter what I've done in the past, I've had this terrible cellulite. And a friend of mine told me about it, and to be honest, I didn't really believe when I saw this piece of wood. And
you would be a bit skeptical about it,
Yeah, because it's
wood, and you think, oh yes, that's going to get rid of my cellulite. How many things have we used over the years to get rid of our cellulite? But tell me, what was your experience of using it, and how long have you used it for?
So I picked it up sometime last year, and then went down the traditional route of the types of exercises that we can do. And then when we got into lockdown and we were no longer able to
go out
and go to our gym classes, I picked it up again. And one of the biggest changes that I saw or felt was how quickly it helped me change the shape of my legs. But also it has a calming effect, because block therapy has got 3 parts to it, and one of the most important parts is teaching us to breathe diaphragmatically. And when we breathe diaphragmatically for an extended period of time, there's a certain amount of calmness that comes to our body ourselves, because we are then bringing more oxygen into our body. And I'm sure most people, when people get upset, or everybody says to you, start breathing deeply, and we do, but a lot of the times we breathe from our chest and not from our bellies. So through that practice, through the block therapy practice, you actually learn how to breathe diaphragmatically as well.
Okay, so that's interesting, because when you do Pilates and you do meditation, it's all about the breath as well. So teaching people how to breathe, how to relax, and breathing relaxes the muscles anyway, doesn't it? And then using the block. I'm curious. I have to use one to find out how they work, and to see if I can get rid of some cellulite.
Yeah.
That should be interesting. What is it that you could tell the audience or the listeners about block therapy to want to use it, have a go at it? How can they connect with you to find out more about it if they're curious?
Oh, well, they can connect to me on Facebook. It's probably the easiest. We've also got a website called blocktherapybliss.com, and they can connect to me over there as well.
Okay, so your Facebook page is Block Therapy, or is it under your name?
Oh, my Facebook page is Block Therapy Bliss, the same as our website, blocktherapybliss.com.
Okay, all right. We will continue this conversation another time, so that if people are interested, we'll be back live to talk a little bit more about what block therapy is, the benefits, and how you can use it, and what's the purpose of it. So thank you, Helen, for your time. And I'm Faye Waterman. This is Talking All Things Business. We'll be back next week. same time, 11 o'clock on Wednesday, to talk more about a different topic. Bye for now.